The important thing right now is to keep up with the mission, with the military mission, to investigate exactly what happened so that we do not repeat such tragedies. And the major thing right now is to go ahead and to finish the job that we started following the horrific Hamas massacre on October 7th. We are determined, the Israeli people, the Israeli government, and the Israeli military, all of them together are determined to finish the job as soon as possible.
With what we are now learning about what happened to these hostages and the way the IDF dealt with that particular situation, they were bare-chested, they carried a stick hung with a piece of white material, they were coming out of a building in a neighbourhood in northern Gaza, and a marksman, an IDF marksman, opened fire from his position inside a building a few dozen metres away, shouting, "Terrorists." How do you, I suppose if I can use this word, diagnose what has gone wrong here?
Well, first of all, it's true that it is a horrible tragedy that happened on Friday morning with these three hostages that were on the verge of being freed, but by themselves, as a matter of fact, which shows their heroism. At the same time, we have to understand the consequences on the ground in this place of Sajaiya, which is a very chaotic environment. Very fierce fighting is going on there for more than a week now, when the IDF is trying to eliminate the Hamas terrorist presence on the ground and underground in Sajaiya. So the soldiers apparently have been in complete tense situation, realizing or thinking that they are facing terrorists, which was, of course, a tragedy for everybody.
Yeah.
The important thing right now is to keep up with the mission, with the military mission, to investigate exactly what happened so that we do not repeat such tragedies. And the major thing right now is to go ahead and to finish the job that we started following the horrific Hamas massacre on October 7th. We are determined, the Israeli people, the Israeli government, and the Israeli military, all of them together are determined to finish the job as soon as possible. But it takes time. We have to understand that. And we will keep up with the job. I think that the IDF is doing a great job under the circumstances, of course, both in order to free as many hostages as possible, at the same time to crush the terrorist organization of Hamas totally in such a way that will enable us and will enable the Gaza Strip to rehabilitate, to recover without terrorism, without evil, and without animosity. This is the major thing that we are concerned with right now. We are focused on that. This is not only an Israeli mission. This is the mission for the Middle East at large, and this is also a mission for the Western world at large. So we are doing the job, most of the job. We have very, very good friends who are helping us to do that. And we're going to go on with our accomplishment as necessary.
Yeah. I have a few other questions, Dr. Elran, just sort of around the wider strategy in light of this, because with what you're saying there, with this incident where 3 Israeli hostages have been killed by the IDF inadvertently, does this not go some way to proving, to demonstrating that because of the intensity and the tension in the situation as it is, that this sort of dual purpose mission of freeing the hostages while exterminating Hamas, that actually that is impossible, that the situation means that those dual objectives cannot be achieved simultaneously, and so the strategy needs to be reevaluated?
Well, I think there is a discussion, a very open discussion about this very question here in Israel. People are wondering what would be the best strategy. As you know, the government and the Ministry of Defense and the military think that this is possible to carry on with a dual purpose, with a dual objectives. One has to support the other. And the most important thing is to do whatever we need to do in a very cautious manner. this again takes time. This is really the real problem here. Because if we want to be surgical, if we want to limit our own casualties, and of course the casualties on the part of the hostages, and also considering the displaced people in Gaza, also all those things take time, and that's why people are wondering. People are wondering also in Israel, but we are determined to continue with our main job, and the job is divided into these two parts. Number one, to free as many hostages as possible, as soon as possible, hopefully now, today. That's why Israel is eager to resume the negotiations with the Qataris and with the Egyptians and with our American friends and with others, so as to set up the ground for a new pause, a new exchange, and a new relief for the families of the hostages.
That's fascinating. So this could be even a turning point in the direction of a ceasefire of some description, whether that is a sort of shorter pause rather than an all-out ceasefire. But would that be your take, that this could be a pivotal moment?
It was not a critical moment.
Sorry, a pivotal moment.
Well, it was not really that circumstantial in the first pause. We think that there is a major difference between a pause, which is a tactical pause, in order to enable freeing the hostages, and a ceasefire, which is something which is more constant, which has a longer duration. We think, and I think also, and I agree with that, with the government and with the military, that the thrust of the military has to continue in a very, very intense manner. This is crucial. It's crucial for the present. It's crucial for the hostages, but it is also crucial. The destruction of Hamas is also very crucial for the future of the Middle East. We cannot have this terrorist organization survive. It cannot survive, and it will not survive.
Yeah. A couple of other questions, just on the concept of the violence pausing. The Foreign Secretary in the UK, Lord Cameron, has suggested that is something he's describing a sustained ceasefire is what is required at this point. What do you make, or a sustainable ceasefire in Gaza is what's required at this point. What do you make of that? He says too many civilians have been killed, and it is being observed here this morning that this is something of a change in tone from the UK government. So what do you make of that?
Well, respectfully, I disagree with the foreign minister. I mean, we think that he is a great person and he understands the situation in the Middle East. I don't know exactly what were the reasons for this statement on his part. But you have to understand that if we practically stop the military thrust right now, not for the sake of having a tactical pause for the exchange of the hostages, it will hamper gravely our objectives of destroying Hamas. This is the most important thing. You have to understand that. We have here a poisonous situation which really destroys every capacity of Israel, of the Palestinians, of the Arab countries, and also the Western countries to set up a new era in the Middle East. And this is the big picture. And we have to understand that this has to be achieved, and it can be achieved, and it will be achieved, I believe, only if Hamas is out of the picture totally, militarily, in a terrorist term, and also in terms of its influence, political influence in the Middle East and in Gaza. So this is really crucial. It has to be done, and it can be done only if we keep up the thrust, if we keep up the offensive, which is going somewhat slower than expected, mostly because we are being cautious.
Yeah. And
so this is the price, but we're going to pay the price, and we're going to do that in a reasonable manner, and we're going to accomplish it.
Dr. Elran, just a final consideration, and it's so interesting hearing from you. You used to work for the IDF. You were involved in military intelligence. In the case of these three hostages, these are three non-combatants waving a white cloth, an international symbol of surrender. Yeah. How should they be brought to justice, and they, I mean, are the IDF soldiers responsible for what has gone wrong here? What should be the punishment?
Okay, so I don't know. The whole thing is presently under inquiry, and we'll see what happened, what were the exact circumstances. But the important thing here is that the Israeli chief of staff of the IDF, General Herzi Halevi, stated yesterday on public that the manner that this tragic event took place, the manner that the soldiers were firing at civilians who turn out to be defenseless, this is not only illegal, this is also not part of the ethos and the conduct of the IDF. And I agree with him completely. As long as we are transparent about that, despite of the horrific tragedy here, and we investigate that, and we deal with the consequences, then we can keep up the main thrust of what's happening there in Gaza, so as to get the victory that we need as soon as possible.